Welcome back to Silent Sales Machine Radio. We are your co-hosts. I'm Brian.
And I'm Robin Joy.
And this is Coach's Corner.
Hey, everybody.
Robin,
good to see you again.
Robin, you brought up this conversation that happened while you were doing one of your Kickstarter sessions.
Yes.
And it was a question that you said maybe caught you a little flat-footed.
Mm-hmm.
What was the question?
The question was, can you just give me a step-by-step, what do we do first, what do we do next, and what do we do the next thing? Well, that was kind of the question. I was like, yeah, it doesn't really work that way. But then I had to think about it. That's not a great answer.
Yeah.
So we sat down, as we usually do when we don't have great answers, and see if we can come up with some better answers.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about what maybe I could have said that would be more helpful. Okay?
All right.
So why is there not a step 1, step 2, step 3, then you have success in this business or any other business? Well, because we're not learning steps from, to build a puzzle or, how to, put Legos together to build a ship or something like that, right? We're learning a skill. We're trying to implement things that we find in our education, in our experience that will help our business grow. Unfortunately, I think it's actually fortunately, no two businesses are going to look alike. They never are.
Right.
Everybody has their own spin. Everybody has their own things to bring to it, which will make it different for everyone.
It needs to be differentiated in some way. If everyone's business looked exactly the same, then there would only be room for one of those.
Right.
Because that, you would just get so good at it. Mm-hmm. I would be better at it than you. It's like,
right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. And it's not really like that. We don't want to create something like that. Mm-hmm. What we want to create is something that you can build for yourself, and then you can compete in the market and find success. This is going to be different. Everybody's going to start at a different place, and that's going to be a different place socially, a different place formally, educational-wise. It's going to be a different place in the world, geographically. All these things are going to go into it. I like to say, it's these differences that we create and the things we figure out to do with the information we get and that we share that makes room for all of us, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. We hear this a lot from when we get coaching clients in, right? They're like, can you just give me the program? Can you just spell it all out for me? Like, okay, I found a test item. I sent it in. What's next?
Yeah.
What's the next phase of the business, right?
Right.
And I think maybe sometimes people are disappointed when you're like, okay, 10 more times. Do that exact same thing 10 more times, right?
Right.
Do that exact same thing 50 more times.
Until you get comfortable with that level, you don't want to move on to the next level.
But I guess I sort of sidetracked myself there. The point of this is that there isn't an exact, like, here's the curriculum.
Right.
Right? Because as you say, everyone comes in with a different skill set. I had a coaching session this week with someone who's, I don't know exactly how to say it, just way advanced. Like he's already, he's if it's a 1 mile thing, he's already 3/4 of a mile in. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. That he's figured out on his own.
He's already figured out a lot of this on his own. So there's not, so where we're going to meet, we meet him where he's at.
Sure.
And then we take him, farther than he would have normally gotten, or than the person who maybe started at ground zero instead of 3/4 of a mile in, because of time and skills and all these kinds of things, right?
Right. And I would think you'd take him back through the fundamentals and make sure there's no holes in his foundation, and so that you can grow.
It's always tricky to say, like, okay, I'm going to assume. I don't want to assume anything here.
Right.
But I do feel like I need to cover some fundamentals so we're on the same page. If we don't address it, then I'm all this time in my mind thinking you're understanding the things I'm talking about. And you're like, what am I missing here? Right?
I like to think of it like, I love that book, The Checklist Manifesto. I can't remember the author's name, but it's a great book.
Yeah.
And he talks about how when you go to the doctor, if you go to the doctor because you broke your ankle, he's still going to check your temperature, check your blood pressure,
take your pulse, listen to your breathing,
every single time. Well, doc, it has nothing to do with that. It's my ankle.
Yeah.
Well, what he does not want to happen is he fixes your ankle, sets your ankle, gives you pain pills, all that's good to go. And then you go home and have a heart attack, and you were just now in his office.
And he could have identified that.
He could have identified
through a series of basic checks.
Exactly. And that's what this book is about, how in the medical field is where it starts talking about how ICUs, there were certain things that they put into place that they did every single time, whether theoretically you needed them or not. You always do need them. You cannot let these basic fundamentals go unchecked. So that's the way I kind of look at reviewing things with people, make sure that there's not something that I see that they might have not known because we have different experiences.
Things we take for granted that we assume that have always been known. They weren't always known.
Yeah.
And one of the examples in that book is like infection rates dropped by some huge percentage just by having the people, when they're visiting their patients, wash their hands before they go into the room, or right when they get into the room, and wash their hands before they leave.
Yes.
Right. So then they're not tracking germs and stuff like that.
Exactly.
From one room to the next. Mm-hmm. Which we know, like the number one place to go get an infection is the hospital.
Yes.
Because there's so many things going on there.
Not a good place to hang out if you don't have a good reason.
Well, just to go back to the original question, I think one of the things that resonates with me is there isn't a recipe for success except to not quit. The number one recipe to success is to not quit. But there's such a huge portion of success that is mindset, not task, not mechanics.
Exactly.
Not how do I find an ASIN, not how do I send in a shipment, right? It's that the hardest part of the journey is that space between your ears.
Oh,
that you have to
it was for
overcome,
us.
Right?
Still is for us all the time. Where our heads get in our own way so much. We have to constantly be in check, always checking in, always trying new things, always. Well, let's take a little bit further, Brian. So what happens, I mean, in your scenario, had a more advanced student come to you. Sometimes we work with people who just started and they have never sent in a shipment before. Different places. It's not unlike if I were to go to the gym and hire a trainer, that same trainer can train me, and they can train a 20-year-old who has, their original hips and somebody who's athletic and been, lifting weights, since he was 14.
Sure.
I mean, it's going to be two different. They're going to start from two different places. Doesn't mean the same coach can't help both.
Right, but the coach has seen the full spectrum, right, and knows where to pick up and go depending on where the client comes in at.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Also, like, just a different perspective on what you're doing. One of the things that we were talking about earlier is when you are, let's say, what are those? The 24 Hours of Le Mans, or like those races that they do like through the desert and stuff like that. Grand Prix? No, I'm not sure it's Grand Prix, but like back in our days when I was a kid, the movie was Cannonball Run, and there was one driver.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
sure.
There was a driver, and then they had a navigator.
Yeah.
Right? And the navigator, of course, it's a lot easier today. The technology, for that sort of stuff might be all on a dashboard or even on a heads-up display.
At the time, though.
At the time, you couldn't, look at the map while you were driving, trying to find a shortcut, doing all these things.
You had to actually look at a map. And make a plan, plot a course before you go.
So maybe not the best example, but let's take like sports cars driving, right? NASCAR. Yes. The person who's driving the car has a radio, and they're radioed into a spotter who has a bird's eye view of the track.
Exactly. He can see the big picture.
He sees the big picture.
All the driver can see is what's right around him, and he can't really even turn his head. He's locked in there.
And when you're going like 200 miles an hour at Daytona,
200 miles an hour,
you don't have time to like shoulder check something, right? You're like,
can I pass?
I mean, time and speed are not in your favor in that case, right? So a spotter can be highly beneficial in that situation, where they can say something like, hey, someone's coming up on your outside. Right. Or, block the inside, or, someone's engine just blew up front, go to the high side of the track.
Right.
There's all kinds of insight that you would get as a driver from your team.
Exactly.
And this is, I love this conversation, the team that you get when you come into coaching. We talk about You know, I was to say, we talk about coaching a lot, but after all, this is Coach's Corner.
This is Coach's Corner. That's right.
But you get a team, and this team is like your spotter, like your coach in the gym, like your navigator if you're driving, right? Someone who can see things that you can't, someone that has a different perspective than you do.
Yes, right. I like the way you say it too. When new clients come on, I've heard you say this a lot. You have a kind of a little mastermind there. You've got your spouse or partner if you have one. You've got your proactive coach. You've got your reactive coach, and you've got yourself, all in kind of a mastermind for the purpose of not just a mastermind to see what we can all come up with and share, a mastermind for the purpose of your success.
Yeah.
That's what you have. And then we have other coaches we can pull in if we need to, other, different tools at our disposal that we can bring when the time's right, if it's necessary for your success.
Yes.
But that's what it's all aimed at, is your success.
Your success. I love that. And having that team around you to give you the perspective, to help you see things that you can't see yet, to remind you even about some things that you already know.
Right. And then you're going to start building your pit crew. You're going to start having people change your tires and make sure you got enough gas to go. And, all of that thing is, make some tweaks in your suspension or whatever.
Put it around a bike. Or take it out, make it looser, make it tighter.
Yeah.
Right. All the things.
All those things that they say on the NASCAR races, right? So you're going to start building your team, and then you'll have a team that then helps you to continue success. And your success is their success. Their success is your success. That's how it all works out.
I watched this video on YouTube, I think recently, about how to get better at speaking, public speaking, or, having conversations with people. And there was this 3-point check, basically, where you record yourself for 5 minutes.
Yep.
And then you do this analysis post-recording. The first analysis is just to listen. So don't even look at when you're listening, listen back, right? Listen to the 5 minutes and just analyze how do you sound?
Yeah.
Right? What filler words are you using? How does your tone come across? How many words are you using that don't help you make your case? Really, 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 really make your case. Really. Right? Like we do it all the time. I'm super excited, right?
Yeah.
I can't tell you how excited I am. It's just, these are habits that we've done.
And the ums and the ers. And
Right. Same thing then when you're doing the visual analysis, like shut the sound off and just watch and notice how you operate. Anyway, these checks that you do in order to get better at what you do. And this is all about allowing yourself to have a different perspective on yourself, be more objective, be more of the observer. But what you get with other people is they can be the observer for you. And especially when it's a coach or a spouse or a partner, even a teammate who can help give you that perspective as well.
Well, so often, just to continue that, so often people come to us and say, okay, this happened. Should I do this or this? And often our answer is, well, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Well, how does that feel if you did this? What if I told you that's a possibility if you did this? Would that still make you want to? Let's brainstorm the answer here, and you make the decision. If I just make the decision for you, I'm not always going to be available.
What have you? Yeah, exactly.
Right. You're going to have to build this skill, but we can certainly help you figure out, why would I do this, or why would I not do this? What else is there around that? All right. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the gym situation.
Okay.
So if I go to the gym and I say, Brian, I want to be a, Mr. Universe, Arnold Schwarzenegger type. I want to be able to lift 500 pounds or whatever, go to the Olympics. So do you say, okay, go take that 500 pounds and work on it until you can lift it? Is that how it works?
So let's just change the exercise up a little bit and say it's like the bench press.
Okay, the bench press.
I want to be able to bench press 225 pounds.
Okay.
So I tell I don't think I can bench press 225 at this moment. No.
Okay.
But
I know I can't.
But the coach, my coach wouldn't tell me, okay, there's 225. There's the trainer. There's 225 on the bar. Go ahead and just try benching that until you get the hang of it.
Yeah.
Okay, but this is what we want. This is what we expect. This is what a lot of people want.
We want to say, show me how to lift 225 pounds.
How do I get to where I am to 225 pounds now?
Now.
Right?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, they want to close that learning gap to as quickly as possible, obviously, and they expect that to be as soon as I understand how to do it, I should be able to do it.
Yeah.
But what is the reality of how you learn how to lift 225 pounds?
Oh, you start with a much smaller weight. Yeah, and you gradually do multiple exercises multiple times per day or week or whatever. I mean, there's a training training program out there.
So what if I go and I bench press 100 pounds? Then do you say, oh, okay, I can do this. It's quite a bit of work.
Yeah.
So now let's go to 225.
Yeah, no, it's not like that either, right?
Right.
There's a progression that happens.
There's a progression.
And the same thing is true when we're doing the business. Actually, this whole conversation got started between the two of us as a result of a great Facebook conversation that happened this week where multiple people contributed.
Yes.
And at the end of it, there was a great analogy that Grant Douglas gave about, basically there's the doggy paddle. If someone doesn't know how to swim, right, you teach them the doggy paddle, and then they can stay above water. They can tread water in shallow, in deep, no matter what, they can always tread water.
Right. And they're going to do that until they're comfortable with that before they start learning the backstroke or
the breaststroke or the freestyle or the...
Now, they can do a whole lot more once they learn these other things.
Well, see, here's the... Yeah.
But you can't learn them all at once just because you were able to do the doggy paddle once.
Oh, yeah, because you got into the doggy paddle once. Now you're now you're an Olympics, Olympic speed freestyle swimmer. Yeah. No, but the bottom line here is that we are looking for ways to become faster, more efficient, and better at swimming. And let's face it, the dog paddle is not going to win you any records.
Right. It's true, but it'll keep your head out of the water.
It'll keep you alive.
Keep you survive in the deep end, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me just say, if you're not a member of the My Silent Team Facebook group, which is completely free, you are missing out on some of these great conversations. This was led by a couple of coaches who kind of gave their opinion, realized, okay, you're talking about this, you're talking about that. And they just had this discussion in front of us all. And other people contributed and chimed in. It was pretty amazing. And these things happen all the time in that group. So if you're not a member of that group, you should be. There's a lot you can learn just by watching people have discussions. What
I loved about that conversation is it was, again, multiple perspectives on the same basic, like we're all out to do the same thing here.
Yeah,
right?
Be
we're
successful
all out
in a
to
general
have a
way,
successful business, and there were multiple perspectives on how to go through some of that analysis. And at the end, Grant comes up with this great analogy about the dog paddle versus the breaststroke or whatever, and it's like, that's exactly right. Yes, you're right. So once you're really comfortable with the dog paddle, then you do start doing some other things.
Yeah,
and you should.
And back to the weights, right?
Yes.
If you just lift 100 pounds once and it was hard to do, you're not going to go to the next.
Yeah, now go to 225.
Keep lifting 100 pounds until that becomes comfortable for you. Then you
start pushing to the next level, right? You break through to the next level.
That's key, I think. Keep pushing. So, unfortunately, we all think that we all start at square one, obviously, but we all want to snap our fingers and be experts.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? And valid. I mean, I do. It doesn't work that way, though. It's messy. There's this awkward gap where you have to be uncomfortable to make progress, right?
The zone of discomfort is what we were calling it. The zone of discomfort.
It's a good place to be, though, because if you're always comfortable, that means you're not growing.
You're not stretched.
Right. When you're uncomfortable, it's not a fun place to be all the time. But if you can get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
Yeah. Like, that's where you want to be, is in the discomfort zone. Not so far that you're going to get injured, but far enough that you know you're pushing. And stay there until it becomes more comfortable, then push some more and keep going.
Just before we go too far away from it, we were talking about the, bench pressing 225 pounds, the whole swimming thing. Well, let's say I wanted to be a NASCAR driver and I want to race at 200 and whatever miles an hour around Daytona.
Yeah.
If I went to a professional, someone who was going to help me do that, they wouldn't put me in a NASCAR.
No.
And say, all right, here you go.
Here you go.
right?
Keep doing this until you don't wreck the car.
Here's what they're going to tell me.
Until you
First,
stay away from the wall.
Step one, here's a go-kart.
Yeah.
Right? The go-kart, we're going to learn some fundamentals here with the go-kart. And once you get really good at it.
If you don't know how to drive, we're going to learn how to drive first.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Because there's a difference between driving and racing.
Right.
Right? You got to check your
we're going to do
turn
some theory
angles.
first. Yeah.
So the point is, like, whether it's the dog paddle or the go-kart or the 100 pounds, we all are typically starting far away from where we want to end up.
Exactly.
Right. But we have to start there. And then there is this sort of zone of discomfort and the frustration that happens. And we act like there shouldn't be any distance to cross. Like, oh, I should just, now I'm right there. I should get there. Okay, I've done it for one day. I should know exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Right. But really, we need to be frustrated. If we're not frustrated, then we're not challenged.
Yeah.
If we're not challenged, then we're not growing. And if we're not growing, then what are we doing?
There's very little sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
If there wasn't frustration getting there.
Yeah.
Right?
I would be like, we hear this all the time. What am I missing? I'm so frustrated. I'm so annoyed, right? Why am I not getting this? And we give our kids and our grandkids the room, the grace to say, well, you're just starting out.
Practice.
How about when you're walking? How about when you're learning to walk? Right?
You think
someone you're running, well, I want to run a 100-meter dash or whatever. Well, okay, you don't know how to walk yet. Here we go. Walking is going to be messy. You're going to fall down. You're going to bonk your head. You're going to, you're going to get a goose egg.
Toddlers learning to walk is hard for parents to watch.
Even so much as, remember, we told the basketball story a while ago, and watching 6, 7, 8, 9-year-olds play basketball is one of the most frustrating things for me as a watcher, as an observer.
Yeah.
Throw it to that person.
Yeah, I know.
Take the shot. Do all the things. Well, but part of it, they don't have full control over their bodies yet. Right. So,
and there's a lot of stimulation coming from all areas for a little guy, right? Yeah.
But these are the learning things that you have to go through. Yeah. If Michael goes on to play, say, even college basketball at some point, he'll look back at this when he was a 6-year-old basketball player and laugh. Yeah. Just like the way that we look back on those first ASINs that we were sourcing and laugh and look back at our frustrations and say, how did I ever think, why did I ever think that this was going to be something I wanted to do?
Or why did I think I wasn't progressing?
That's
I
true
see that
too.
More often.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
I feel like I'm not getting anywhere. I have a client who comes to me all the time and I say, how you doing? Well, it doesn't seem like I'm getting very far. Okay. All right. Well, let's look and see. Well, once we go and see, you have been you've done a lot. It takes a lot to get to where you are. And you've accomplished that. You just have further to go.
Yeah.
You always have further to go. It's a journey. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And I think that you said it well when you said, get cozy with the struggle. Get comfortable with the struggle.
Oh,
get happy with that.
If you have been in military service or you know someone who's been in military service, my best friend always used to say, embrace the suck. Now, our lives are not at risk here. So take it, this is not in the same vein as, fighting a war or anything like that. But embracing the suck is really part of what we're doing here.
It really is. Yeah. You have to fall in love with the toughness of it.
Yes. This is why I would say, fall in love with sourcing.
Yes.
Right? If you can fall in love with sourcing, the rest of this business is, you're going to have a great business.
That's the hard, and it's all front-loaded. It is. I'm not going to say by design, but there's nothing we can do about that. It's toughest in the beginning. You're more restricted than you ever will be in the future.
Yep.
You've done this fewer times than you ever will in the future. You have less money than you ever will have in the future, less time than you ever will have in the future. It's all front loaded. It's all the worst in the beginning. So if you can travel through that yucky part and keep pushing forward, you're going to win. As long as you don't quit, you're going to win.
That's right. There are no failures, only quitters.
That's what has been said.
John Wooden said
that. That's right.
That's not our quote for the day, though.
No, it's not.
But it does play in really well to this. And this failure part of it, of what we're doing, it feels like a failure when we're starting out and we don't find things right away. It feels like a failure when we send in items.
We should be able to.
And we don't make as much money as we thought or that we would like to have made, right? There are all these things that, or maybe you're one of these like me. I just the king of not getting it. If you're the king of not getting it or the queen of not getting it, this is good as long as you don't quit.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Because you can't always get it as long as you don't quit.
Because actually success is born out of these failures.
Yes.
That's where it comes from. You've got a couple of examples that we were talking about this week.
Walt Disney.
Walt Disney.
Right? Walt Disney, one of his first jobs, they laid him off because they told him he wasn't creative enough. Walt Disney wasn't creative enough.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, that didn't feel so good, I'm sure. And he didn't know what he was going to become. He had to push for it and figure out what he wanted to accomplish, figure out a way to get there. And he did.
Funny how I know you've got a couple of more examples, but it's funny how sometimes the most painful failures are the very impetus or the seed of your future success. If he didn't get canned because he wasn't creative enough at some point,
right?
Who knows what would have happened?
Who knows?
He could have gone on to be mediocre.
Yeah, because he didn't have a reason to push.
Exactly.
Right?
Right.
Same way with Michael Jordan. Okay, Michael Jordan's a great example of this because when he tried to make, the first time he tried to make his varsity team, he did not make the team. Well, can you imagine Michael Jordan not making any basketball team? In high school, yeah.
Yeah, high school varsity team. He didn't make it.
Yeah. Well, he did not know at the time what we know now is that he became one of the greatest basketball players ever. I'll argue with anybody over that. Great.
Not one of. The.
Very possible.
I'll argue over it.
Okay. The point is, if you've ever seen Michael Jordan play basketball in his prime with the Bulls, it's amazing.
Yeah.
This is what made me really, really start watching basketball, was during that time when the Bulls were hot and Michael Jordan was out there. It was incredible. And other basketball players, don't get me wrong, have done incredible things. The point is, he did not even make his high school team the first time he tried out for it. Well, what was good about that and what was bad about that? I did some studies this week on some of these people for a different purpose, but I thought it would be helpful here. Michael would have gone, he could have made his varsity team and probably could have done okay, but everybody was taller than him. He was only 5'10" at the time. He wasn't the 6'3" that he grew into be. He didn't know that he was going to grow into that.
This is the next year, not what that's not where he finished, 6'3".
The next year, yeah. By the next year, he grew to 6'3". Exactly. So thanks for that. But then he also would have been kind of riding the bench on the varsity team because there were a lot more athletic, experienced players that were older than him and bigger than him that would have gotten the play. He got to, I'm sure he didn't think it was a get to at the time, but he got to be the star on the junior varsity team during that next year. He got to hone his skills. And boy, he didn't just take it as I get to play and hone my skills. He practiced all day, and his mother talked about how he would not quit. It would be late at night and he'd still be shooting baskets. He didn't quit. And he says, all I did when I thought I was about tired and ready to quit, I thought about that roster when it was posted and it didn't have my name on it. And I wanted that so bad. And he instilled in himself during that time things that would make him great in the future. But he didn't know that he was going to be great in the future. He just knew he had a lot of work to do right now just to get to the next step.
Well, I think it's giving me chills just having this conversation and the way you're talking about it. But there's a part of this. Yes, there were the mechanics around him making a basketball shot, shooting free throws, doing all the things that you got to do, right? He practiced. But the other part that was going on there was what was going on up here.
Yeah.
And Jim called out the 80-20 rule recently in a podcast episode, the Pareto principle that is like, 20% of your ASINs are going to make up 80% of your profit.
Sure.
And, 80% of your ASINs make up 20% of your profit. 20% of the work that you do is going to drive 80% of the results that you have in your business as well. And just to maybe hopefully bring this full circle, if I haven't gotten too far off track, 20% of this business is mechanics. 80% of this business is mindset.
Absolutely.
Any business, not just this business. I think any business, your success is 80% mindset. I
believe that if you can believe it, you can get it. That's the hardest part. It was for us.
This is what the other thing we were talking about. We talk a lot about our concepts, our frameworks, our systems, right? From the 3-step check and the 4-week test and the pre-flight inspection and bridging the gap, all the things that we find to be highly fundamental in the business. They are, to me, comparable to, let's say, there was a time when I was training for a half marathon. I used to, believe it or not, I used to run a lot.
You did?
So
you did the Garden of the Gods 10 miles several
race,
times?
10Ks, half marathon, all good stuff, right? How many different training plans do you think are out there that tell you how to run your best 10K?
Probably thousands. Bunches and bunches.
And guess what?
They all work.
They all work.
They all work.
They all work, number one. Well, they all will work if you believe they will work. That's the most important thing.
Not all of them will work for you, but it's more about choosing a plan and working that plan than it is about how many plans there could possibly be.
Right. The point is, it's not just the Olsen's coaching methods that work.
Absolutely
here.
Not.
And that's the other part about that conversation that I love that took place on Facebook, is that there are a lot of different ways to do this. And whatever way you want, adopt that and go. But if you can believe in it, it's going to work for you. If you can believe it, conceive it, believe it, achieve it, right?
Yes, that would be Napoleon Hill.
Another Napoleon Hill.
Yes.
Well.
All right. Well, now let's do one more, Brian.
Okay, yes.
So those of us who are trying to find our first ASINs and we're very restricted and we can't find a source, think about this. J.K. Rowling is another person that I was studying this week, and she's the author of the Harry Potter series. Huge, just a crazy phenomenon now. But she had a lot of challenges getting there. I'm not going to go into that. But once she had a finished manuscript, she sent it to a publisher. And guess what happened? They said, pass, I'm good. So she sent it to another one. And they said, no, I don't think so. Yeah. She did that over 12 times before somebody decided to give her an advance of 1,500 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. They finally decided to publish it, but they didn't believe in it enough to give her much of an advance, right? So she's like, okay, well, I got it published. Then it went crazy.
Well, didn't they also make her change her name, basically?
Yeah.
Not change her name, but initials, J.K. Rowling.
It was instead of a woman's name, they thought it would go better with, there were the whole bunch around that. But I'm trying to liken it to the fact that, you have to try and try and try sometimes to find an ASIN that you can even test. You got to keep going. But Howard Schultz, Starbucks guy, 217 no's out of 242 presentations for funding to get for Starbucks. Now, the people who said no are probably right? But the point is, you don't know. Michael Jordan didn't know that he was going to be a great basketball player.
Oh, I think he absolutely did. That's what he was training himself for.
But he hadn't gotten there yet. There was a big gap between him and where that was, and he was willing to walk that path. J.K. Rowling did not know that this was going to blow up into a crazy thing. She just kept trying to get to the next step. She just wanted to be published. And then they wanted a sequel, right? They wanted the next book. And she was so terrified to write the next book because this happens a lot too. Now she thinks every word has to be perfect. And if I mess up on this one, well then, everything I've done so far is not going to mean anything.
Expectations now.
Yeah.
As opposed to before, there were no expectations.
Different. So I'm just trying to make the point that, you're going to look a lot of ASINs that won't work. A lot of them.
Yeah. Someone asked the question yesterday or today, not that it matters when, about, how many ASINs do you have to test to find success, to find replenishables?
Mm-hmm.
And, I didn't answer it right. And
all of them until you find one.
That's the answer. However many it takes is how many you need to test, right? So we all want to know the answer. This is the classic, I want to get to where I don't understand things to where I do understand things now. And really, there's this continual zone of discomfort that we are going to be in, regardless of whether I found an ASIN today or I found a replenishable tomorrow or whatever, find a replenishable tomorrow. And by the way, just because you got that solved, now your zone is moving forward, right? And so now it's about how, maybe how you're going to prep your stuff, or how you're going to scale your business, or how you're going to hire people, or how you're going to move into wholesale, or how you're going to do whatever.
This part of outsourcing is terrifying because, I've done this all by myself, but can I manage other people doing it for me? Oh my goodness, that's a whole thing, right?
Yeah.
So, let's move forward. You wanted to go forward, and I stopped you, but I just want to encourage everybody that this is normal.
Yeah.
This is normal. Everybody goes through this, and you will too. You got to be willing to go through it.
Well, one of the things that I notice when I'm working with newer people who are in the coaching program, or when I see conversations going on in the Facebook group, is that there seems to be a lot of busyness from newer people, right? They're and this was me.
Looking everywhere.
This was me.
Find answers,
right? I want to do it all, so I got to do all these things and really take a deep breath. The skill that you need to have is not about juggling 1,000 things that you're doing.
Right.
The skill is zeroing in and identifying what's important. Remember that 80-20 thing. You're probably trying to do 100% of things, and you really, if you focus on 20%, it's going to make the 80% of the results.
Yeah.
So
build one step at a time.
Yep. Relax.
Yeah.
Give yourself some grace. It's okay. Know that you're not going to quit.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter. When you know you're not going to quit, then you just are going to keep hammering away. It's like those monkeys we see trying to break open those nuts. They just are going to keep hammering and hammering and hammering. They just keep doing it over and over again until they figure it out, and then they break that thing open and there's a snack.
Exactly.
That's the way I feel sometimes.
They want what's inside, and they're going to hit it as many times as they need to in order to get out what's inside.
Yeah.
Right? How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Pop?
How many? I can't remember.
1, 2,
2,
3.
Oh,
3 licks.
3. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Do you have a quote for us today?
I do have a quote for us today. This quote comes to us from Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan
all over our podcast today.
Yeah.
Here's what I love about this quote is it perfectly illustrates the whole failure thing. Don't quit. He says, I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I failed over and over again in my life. And that's why I succeed.
That's why he succeeds.
Yeah.
That's why. Not just I succeeded in spite of that. That's the reason I succeeded.
Yeah.
I had to take the next step, which is a failure. And then the next step, which is a failure. And next step, a missed shot. Next step, a missed shot. Until I kept hitting that nut until I could get what's inside. And I hit it as many times as I needed to. And then I went for another one.
That's right.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
So,
all right.
So
we're here for you. You guys can do this too. Holler out at us in the Facebook group. We're here to encourage you. We're here to let you know this is normal. This is okay. Don't quit. Use your resources. We're all going to do this together.
So what happens when you test an ASIN and it doesn't work?
Go test some more ASINs.
Test more ASINs.
Test. All right.
Let's go test some more ASINs.
Thanks, everybody. We'll
Talk to you soon.
Hey, before I let you go, we've got a good friend of mine, Mr. Jeff Schick. He's on the show about once a week or so around here. He is our resident legal and policy expert for all things Amazon, Walmart, e-commerce, and he's always got an insight or a tip for us. Jeff, what's on your mind today, buddy?
Hey, well, thanks for having me on. I guess the big thing that we're seeing that we want to reiterate to sellers is this concept of don't cross the line with Amazon. Because back in the day with Amazon, you could experiment with having your own interpretation of policies. And you could, if you read a policy and said, you know what, I think that this product should be packaged this way going to Amazon. I did it myself. I would buy products that came master packed in a case of 72, and I would tell Amazon, I've got one case of 72 that I want to send to your fulfillment centers, even though that 72 is really 6 cases of 12 within that unit. And so back in the day, they'd send you an email saying, write a plan of action of what you did wrong. In that case, the 72, that I would say I sent it as a master pack instead of individual cases. And then, they would reinstate your account and all was well with the world. The problem we're seeing now with Amazon is that they are not interested in hearing your explanation for why you did something. So instead of saying, why did you send in 72? They simply say, we see that you sent in 72 and you should have sent in case of 12. Either write a appeal that explains why you didn't do what you're being accused of, or our decision stands to keep your account deactivated. And so we're seeing that across the board with Amazon and different policy interpretations. And so we really want to reiterate to sellers that, the seller's interpretation doesn't matter. It's Amazon's interpretation that matters because it's their platform. So when you are reading a policy and you think it should be interpreted this way, what matters is, what does the seller performance representative on the other side who has flagged your account as part of one of their queries, what do they think when they look through your listing or look through your catalog or your business practices? And so really, making sure that you're following the spirit and the letter of the policies and familiarizing yourself with the Amazon selling partner policies is really important, because they're no longer interested in the I didn't know that was a policy excuse. They are expecting that if you're going to sell products on Amazon, that you're going to research. So, for instance, you're selling a toy gun. They're expecting that you'll have read the restricted product policy for weapons to make sure that your toy gun complies with the restricted product policy. You're selling a pharmaceutical. They're going to expect that you've read the health and beauty policies and quality control policies, guidelines for shipping products to consumers or to Amazon. So really, the focus is, make sure that you're reading the policies, understand the policies, and then if you don't know what they are, that's the perfect time. Reach out to our team, ask for our interpretation. We see enough of these cases that we're pretty spot on knowing how Amazon's going to interpret it. So we can pull up the policy and tell you this is the most likely interpretation that Amazon is meaning when they say these words. They say, don't send, products in, anything besides clear poly bags. That means don't send products in anything besides clear poly bags. So, we can read through those policies and help make them more clear to sellers, so that way they understand this is what Amazon means and what they're looking for compliance.
Very good. And from my vantage point, it just makes having a good, clean, healthy Amazon seller account even more valuable,
Right.
because there are various ways that you can make a judgment call, kind of go out on your own. I think I know what they mean here. I'm going to guess, and you wind up paying a big price for it.
Right.
So stay clean, get good advice, get in the Facebook group, ask your questions there, get clarity before you make questionable decisions, or get jeffschick.com, get you guys on retainer for a few dollars a month and bounce these things off of your team before you jump. It always breaks my heart, Jeff, to see people who, I almost did it the right way, but I thought it would be okay. So I just went ahead. And now they've got a mess and they're coming to us and saying, hey, can someone help? The time to ask for help is before you come to the fork in the road and make a decision, right?
Correct. No, exactly. I mean, we see it too. And it's like, so many times sellers come to us and they say, gosh, if I'd only just asked for your opinion on this policy rather than asking my friend or asking or just trusting my gut or one of these things. And then they look back and they say, they should have, should have, could have, would have. And now they're suspended for, a while before they get back up, if they do get back up, because we are seeing a rise of cases where Amazon says, our decision is final. You violated our policy and we stand behind this decision to deactivate you.
Yeah. Yeah. We want to keep that from happening. Yeah. Because it's a very valuable asset to have an active account, and it just is. So,
exactly.
Beautiful advice. I appreciate your time today, and looking forward to having you back again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, thanks for the listeners. Reminder, jeffschick.com, just like the razor.
Yeah.
Get over there, put their team on retainer for all things Amazon, Walmart, e-commerce, policy, legal questions. It's just great to have them on your side. So thanks again, Jeff.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to this great episode of Silent Sales Machine Radio. We have a very quick announcement that you don't want to miss right now.
Does anyone out there ever feel uncertain when choosing an ACE in a test? Like, it's ambiguous and you're not really sure.
Yeah, or like you have to stand on one leg on the second Tuesday of the first week of the month if the moon is in retrograde.
Right. And hold your mouth right. You gotta remember to hold your mouth right. Then you might possibly
consider testing that ASIN someday, maybe.
Right. Sometimes Keepa seems overwhelming. Like it's got so many data points. What if I'm missing something? I'm afraid I'm missing something, so I don't want to pull the trigger. Right?
Yes. Well, we host a 2-day workshop that will demystify the process of building a predictable, scalable, and sustainable book of business on Amazon.
Yeah, it starts with a pre-flight inspection of a listing. So you can answer the question, should I go any further with this ASIN or do I need to move on?
If you get past that, we're going to show you how to apply 3 simple yes or no questions that will help you decide whether to pull the trigger or not. Yeah. Is this even a good ASIN to test?
Right. And if you do decide to test it, we'll help you implement a framework for a 4-week testing process. And this process is clear and methodical, and it'll tell you whether you should replenish that ASIN or not.
Now, in these 2 days, we're going to roll up our sleeves and we're going to practice how to apply these critical concepts together. It's intense, it's focused, and it's packed with frameworks, quizzes, and actionable information that really is going to stack the deck in your favor when finding your first 100 replenishable ASINs.
Or your next 100 replenishable ASINs.
Yes, I love it.
Yes. You're going to leave with a roadmap to create your foundational book of business over the next few months.
Our next workshop is May 27th and 28th in Orlando, Florida.
Yeah, but seating is limited. It's an intimate setting, but you'll be able to ask all of your questions, plus you'll hear all the questions of the other attendees.
Yeah, this is fun, dynamic, educational. It's a great experience where you will get to meet and work with other people who are doing the same things that you are with similar goals. Imagine how you would feel when you get back home after the workshop and you're feeling transformed from unsure to certain, from cautious to confident, from overwhelmed to empowered.
Right. Yeah. You don't have to stand on one leg anymore and hold your mouth right. Just
Right.
making sure, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. So if you would like to feel that way, go to provenamazoncourse.com/100. That's provenamazoncourse.com/100. And we look forward to seeing you there because we're inspired by the accomplishments of others.
We're passionate about helping others reach their goals.
And we're committed to sharing the keys to success that have been shared with us.